But we got Matthew Horder on the line, the author of The Day the Sky Fell. Matthew, how are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I am fine. A remarkable thing, isn't it, that any country, and I'm assuming we have to lay the blame at the doors of Putin and Russia, that anyone could sanction the wanton destruction of an aeroplane and so much life?
Yeah, I think it's something that resonates with so many people because a lot of us do travel on commercial aircraft, and so it's really hard to make any sense of and reason of why and this sort of thing would happen in the first place or even be entertained in the first place.
It changed the world and changed certainly your world in an instant. Do you remember where you were when you got the news?
Absolutely. I was at home. I'd woken that it was a Friday morning, so around 6 a.m. And I'd had multiple missed phone calls from both of my brothers, which was a little odd. One brother lived in London, the other was in Melbourne. And I managed to get on to my brother in Melbourne, and he had trouble speaking at that stage. But he managed to sort of mutter out that he thinks Mum and Dad's planes crashed. And of course, my initial reaction wasn't that I didn't believe him, but it was almost disbelief.
Yes.
And while he was chatting or trying to talk, I turned on the TV, and it was the lead story across all the stations. It was the only story across all the stations, and I started to sort of check a few details, flight numbers, dates, times, all those things, and I said, look, it's adding up. I said, but I'll call you back, and that sort of set the tone for that day and the next nearly 12 years.
For your mother and father, what was it, the great adventure overseas, or were they regular travellers?
So look, probably a little bit of both, but it certainly wasn't their first trip overseas. They'd travelled many times before. They enjoyed travel. That was something that they were doing. Certainly at this stage of their lives, they had, Dad had recently retired or was pretty much retired, and as was Mum. And as I mentioned, one of my brothers lived in London, so that was a reason to sort of travel to Europe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just it was something that they did, something that, like I've sort of opened with, a lot of people do.
Yeah, well, an experience apparently or usually without any kind of risk.
Absolutely, yeah. Not this sort of risk, put it that way.
No.
Yeah.
Are you across exactly how they discovered that it was I don't know what sort of missile it was, but it was a missile deliberately aimed at the aeroplane.
It was a Buk missile.
Now, that's Russian, isn't it?
And, yeah, the missile came from Russia. So there was Russian-backed separatists occupying that, or trying to occupy that part of eastern Ukraine. And they had been in conflict since, around March 2014. At that stage, the Russian government denied any involvement, but the separatists were backed by Russian arms, and they had the separatists had asked for heavier artillery to shoot down aircraft. That not so much to target our aircraft necessarily, but shoot down other Ukrainian military aircraft. And the Russians supplied the Buk missile. It was operated by the separatists who perhaps weren't fully competent in using the missile and locked it onto to a commercial aircraft and shot it down.
Well, it would have been flying at Tony Denton is an expert in these sort of things because he's
let me guess, 980 kilometres an hour.
And what height?
40,000 feet.
So would it be reasonable to assume that on the ground you'd be able to recognise this as a passenger plane?
Maybe not. Well, what do you reckon? I think they probably look bigger than a military jet. Yeah.
Have you gone into that at all, Matthew?
I haven't quite gone into that, but your numbers are pretty good. So they were at 33,000 feet on this particular occasion. And I mean, that's an interesting insight, Jeremy. I hadn't really sort of thought of it in that way, but generally speaking, you would say a commercial aircraft like that would look different to a military aircraft. So there'd be a point of difference for sure.
Wouldn't they pick up the ACAR's transmissions and all the ADSB and all that
What's
stuff?
an ACAR?
Oh, that's the VHF and microwave transmission of the aircraft.
Well, I suppose if they were being...
So you can work out the flight number, the height, all that information.
Well, if they cared and they were discriminating enough to check before they shot...
Well, that's what you'd normally do.
Yeah, well,
to make sure you don't shoot down the wrong thing.
Well, if you cared.
Well, that's right.
298 people, 27 Australians. I don't know. Do we know whether it was a sudden end or was there time for the people to understand what was going on in the aeroplane?
So I guess we'll probably never really know, but the way it's been explained to me, and I guess the way I like to think of it is that it was reasonably sudden. So a Book missile will not necessarily hit the target directly. It detonates at the target and sends shrapnel into the aircraft, which pierces the fuselage, causes the plane to break up, lose compression, break up mid-flight and fall to the ground, which is what happened. And so at that point where the compression in the cabin is lost, it is most likely that every passenger was unconscious within a matter of seconds. So if there was any recollection of it, it'd be very minor. And then, of course, the fall from 33,000 feet to the ground was enough to kill everybody. So
you'd stop breathing virtually straight away at 35,000 feet, 33,000 feet, wouldn't you?
There's no time, the way the cabin broke up, there's no time for oxygen masks or any of that sort of stuff to sort of be deployed. Like you said, travelling at high speed, that would just be blowing through the cabin as well. It's most likely they didn't suffer. If they did, it wasn't for very long.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but there was on television here in South Australia last night a documentary on MH17. Did you know about that?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And it was quite graphic, not something probably because of your personal involvement that you should look at, because it was quite graphic and explicit, dealing with the people who were on the ground trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was the compensation paid, or did they make any attempt to pay compensation to the people who lost family?
The short answer is no. So that's still, in terms of the Russian state, that's still a matter that's ongoing. But no, they haven't.
Are we saying they got away with it?
Look, you could probably say that, but it's still being pursued, I guess, and they're still being held to account. They're just not taking any accountability or responsibility. So to a point, so far they would appear to have gotten away with it, but we, authorities haven't given up chasing it either.
Well, in the court of public opinion, they won't get away with it.
So, no, absolutely not, and nor should anyone. It's just not. It's just not appropriate.
When did the book come out?
So my book, I launched it on the 18th of April, so it's pretty fresh. So what's that? Just over a month ago.
Yep.
It's a bit of a. I'd sort of go into, obviously, Mum and Dad were on board that flight, so the whole MH17 component is a big part of it, but it's also about our experiences and my experiences and what we did. It's written in a bit of a memoir style. It sort of it humanises the story a little bit.
Do you feel it's something your mother and father would have wanted you to do?
So that's a really good question, and I'm not sure. I think Dad would have been probably pretty happy with it. It's the sort of thing he'd do. Mum was always a bit private and not so concerned about sort of probably sharing the details. So I think she would have been really happy that I wrote the book, but maybe cautious on publishing it. But I think ultimately they would be pretty proud of what the product is and how it's ended up, and ultimately what I've done around the book.
Did you find it hard to find a publisher?
So, well, I self-published, so I've done it that way. I haven't pursued a publisher too hard, so I didn't sort of go down that track in the end. I've just kept it myself.
Yeah. Is this your first book?
This is my first book. Yes.
What do you do for a living? What's your background?
So I'm a manager. I work in Queensland with Queensland government. So I manage our team who deliver infrastructure projects across Queensland. So it's a lot of project management, contract management.
Mm. So what did you think of your first writing experience? Did you enjoy it, or was it hard work?
So I'm going to say it's hard work. It's hard work in two fronts. One is obviously there's a very emotional, personal side to what I'm writing about, and that some days is just not easy. But also I found very important for me to sort of get those words out and get them down. So very beneficial as well. But writing in this style, so being, I guess, working in project management, contract management, you write very differently. It's reports and that sort of factual sort of stuff. So to sit down and write differently was also a challenge for me. I got some support through some mentoring training that I had around all of that, which helped me greatly, but definitely a big personal challenge.
Yeah. I would have thought it could have been a draining, very difficult thing for you to write.
Absolutely. That emotional side is very, very draining indeed. Yep.
Yeah. Is there another book in there somewhere?
I get asked that a lot already. And look, I'm not jumping into one, but I'd never say never. And the reality is there probably is another book in there somewhere.
There's a when MH17 came down, shot down. I can't think of another incident like that apart from Lockerbie.
It gets compared to Lockerbie quite a lot.
Yeah, I guess it would. There was another documentary they made about a Boeing 777. I'm not sure what airline that was, but it came down in the ocean.
You're thinking of Air France, June 2009, Rio to Paris, A330, I think.
Was it A330? That's right.
Yeah, A330.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And as of yesterday, Air France and Airbus had a fine issued out of the EU of €250,000.
That's why I think of it. Yes, that's
a couple of days ago. Yeah,
not a big fine, but
it's funny because that's like 17 years after the event.
Yeah. But
it's a trivial fine.
But apparently, Tony and Matthew and Gary, what they found when eventually they found the black box, they discovered that the captain had left the bridge or left the cockpit, and there were two co-pilots, one I suspect a trainee, and they input into the computer something that wasn't right.
They were heading into a stall, and in a panic they were pulling back on the stick rather than pushing down to recover from the stall. They had no basic flight training that was kicking in when it was needed.
No. So it was both the aircraft and the airline
Absolutely.
that was held responsible. But, I would think that that for the people who died would be very hard to live with, that was totally preventable. Not to say that MH17 wasn't totally preventable, but we need to be able to know that we can travel with relative safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's I think that's like I've sort of said, a lot of people do resonate with these things because we're, especially in Australia, Australians travel, they do stuff, and we have every right to feel safe when we do travel overseas or anywhere for that matter.
Did you wrestle with finding a title, The Day the Sky Fell? Did you come up with that immediately, or did that take a while?
It probably, it's a bit of both, to be honest. I toyed with a few different titles, but The Day the Sky Fell was always in the mix. And at one stage it was a chapter heading, and ultimately it got sort of pulled out and pulled up front as the title of the book.
Would you like to see somebody make it into a documentary or a movie, a biopic?
Yeah. So look, I think it lends itself to that sort of thing. There's definitely a screenplay or something that can be written out of it. I haven't pursued anything along those lines yet, Jeremy. But if one of your listeners is in that field and thinks it's worth having a look at, I'd be more than happy to have a chat.
Well, you just never know who is listening. You just don't know. Anyway, how do we get the book? What's the best way? Self-published, and what does one do?
So self-published, so you can order it, I guess, directly from myself. I've got a website. It's matthewhorder.com.au.
Oh, good, easy.
It is because it is all published properly, so you can get it on all the major online book retailers like Amazon and Booktopia and those sort of places. Yep. There's an ebook on Amazon KDP, and look, you probably won't find it in your bookshop, but you can certainly ask your local bookshop to order it in for you. It'll all be catalogued properly. They can get one in, get a copy for you.
Well, I was talking earlier about the fact that 700 radio stations on the CBS network closed down today. Maybe it is not with the international difference in time exactly today, American time, but they will close on the 22nd of May. And it's a bit like, radio's a bit like the book industry in a sense, because people would always go to their local bookshop. People would always turn on their local radio station. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
The online world in which we live is really taking over.
It is a little bit, although there are some good bookstores around there, and I think when people are out and about, they often stick their head in.
Yeah.
And I don't know about radio. I always put it on when I'm in the car. So I guess
there are good bookshops and there are some good radio stations as well. No, I totally agree with you. And that's why I find it a sad day that so many people, 700 radio stations is an awful lot of people, to find themselves just out of work like that, closed down and gone. That's after 100 years, 100 years they've been broadcasting. Anyway, it's good to talk to you, Matthew, and good luck with the book. Matthew Horder, HORDER.com, The Day the Sky Fell, and I wish you